Morning, folks. Vinny from Suds in the Squared Circle. It is 11 a.m. on Friday, the 20th of October, 2023. I just want to say I finally got my new car. I just posted it, and I want to thank Carvana again for being so I don't want to say hassle-free, but easy enough to actually go ahead and get the car. I'm about ready to watch GH from last night, take notes, and then go ahead and watch Days from this morning and take notes. I did finally start watching Y&R and B&B. I'm all caught up for this week on both shows. I did not take notes for Y&R and B&B because I'm still getting into it. So because I don't necessarily mention the names of everybody on the show, I still don't know who's who yet. I have the idea of of some of them. Victor Newman, and he seems to me like he's more of to me. I made a note in my head yesterday while watching Y&R that Victor Newman actually reminds me of Vince McMahon, and I know that they're I'm sure Eric Braeden may not necessarily appreciate that analogy, but if you actually look at the storyline that Eric Braeden and Victor Newman is having right now, and the fact that it literally just happened with the WWE that, Vince McMahon came back in December. He kind of forced his way back into the company, and then he was basically put out to pasture a couple weeks ago when Ari Emanuel, who is his boss for the very first time, Vince has a boss in 40 years, basically said, no, Triple H is the head of content. So head of creative, and that's it. So Vince no longer has a say in creative. But in terms of Victor Newman, the idea that, the stress level, but actually kind of looking at the stories that's being told, and he basically let his wife know that this supposed dementia is a test to see which of his children are going to stab him in the back. That sounds exactly like something Vince would do to Shane and Stephanie. So it really does draw a lot of parallels. And so I do have to tell you I'm enjoying watching them, and I'll get better on them. And being on Blog Talk Radio for the Soap Operas Take Two Radio, I think it is Blog Talk Radio. That's the actual name of the show. But so here's the thing. I'm enjoying it. I do happen to enjoy being on that show, and I was kind of hesitant to get into Y&R and B&B because when I first started on, Blog Talk Radio, I really wasn't in the time frame to be able to watch more than what I was watching. Now I actually have the time, and I'm able to sit back and kind of get into it. So, like Christy and I said, eventually we're going to start adding in some more shows in terms of Days and Y&R and B&B and kind of go from there for Suds Media. But at the end of the day, we're going to go ahead and, expand on Suds in the Squared Circle. I haven't been able to put the Squared Circle news out yet, just because I was getting ready for my car today and just other things that we're going through and, getting things taken care of, but I will get that out as soon as possible. Because let me tell you something, WWE has never been hotter. NXT didn't, NXT's ratings for this week obviously had a drop from last week, but last week they had John Cena, Cody Rhodes, Paul Heyman, Asuka, The Undertaker. They really packed it with superstars. But see, here's the thing. Chris Jericho put out an excerpt on X, is basically saying, not for WWE to kiss their own asses because, there's only so many times that somebody wants to go down to NXT because it's the quote-unquote C show, and they really didn't beat AEW by that much. I'm sorry, but beating a show by 50% is a lot. The ratings were 900,000 for NXT to 600,000 for AEW. Now, there are some crossovers, I get that. And AEW was not on its normal night. So if you're not watching the week before, they basically had their diehard fans move with them. If you're a casual AEW fan, you know what, maybe I'll tune in. If you didn't know they were moving the nights, you wouldn't have known. So I understand that as well. And, maybe that extra 300,000 that tuned into NXT are those crossovers. And they chose to watch NXT instead of AEW. Because, quite honestly, when AEW is on its normal night, it ranges between 8 and 900,000, sometimes a little higher. I don't follow the ratings completely, and maybe I shall going forward. And I'm also looking, to start doing the ratings for the soaps as well. So I'll take a look at all of that as we go forward. But quite honestly, I do feel that NXT is the better product. I feel WWE in general is the better wrestling company. Not taking anything away from AEW, I'm just simply saying that the style of wrestling that AEW puts on is not what I enjoy. There's no psychology. There's the storylines just don't make sense at times. There's a lot of rules or lack thereof that just don't follow what I enjoy. Now, is that something bad that everybody has to feel like me? No, absolutely not. You feel the way you want to feel. If you like AEW, enjoy it. I don't prefer it. But at the same time, I feel that it's going to be a great thing for AEW to get better. Now, there's a lot of people posting pictures about, their arenas being half full or whatever. You can only take that with a grain of salt, because sometimes maybe they're posting a picture from before the bell even rings or AEW afterwards. But either way, I want to thank y'all for listening. I feel that it's going to be a good thing going forward for the wrestling audience in general, if AEW gets better. And maybe they need to take a look at who's running the show. Is it Tony Khan? Tony Khan needs to kind of bring Bryan Danielson into the fold. They said, oh yeah, he's going to be doing a lot of stuff creatively. Well, as of right now, you can't tell. Collision was good because of CM Punk, because Punk wouldn't let the garbage indie stuff on the show. That's why Jack Perry wasn't allowed to be there. That's why the Young Bucks, weren't allowed to be there, because their style of wrestling is indie-rific. And I'm not taking anything away from the indies, because you don't get the same fans every time for an indie, so it's really hard to do storylines, and sometimes you're getting big names to come in. So indies are obviously the AA and AAA of wrestling. Actually, if you consider NXT, Ring of Honor as AAA, the indies would be AA. And they're still learning, so I get it. But to put an indie-style show on national TV and expect ratings, like a Raw or a SmackDown, you're not going to get it. In my opinion, AEW is the minor leagues. It is a glorified indie, because that's the way they're running it. That's the way that the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega feel comfortable running their product. Because, think about it. Who is Tony Khan trying to please? Cody got out of there. Cody was an EVP, and he realized what was happening, and he got out of there. He went back to the WWE. Jade Cargill figured out what was going on, and she figured, to send my legacy, I got to be in the WWE. So WWE is still the brand standard for professional wrestling, sports entertainment, whatever you want to call it. AEW is not there. Tony Khan needs to get a lot of help in order to get it there. And, with Jericho going off, I understand he's trying to be, loyal to his company, and he doesn't want to, have the WWE, be somebody who's going to put over. But, here's the thing. Sometimes you just have to call it where it is. He's going to be a homer. He's been friends with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, so he's going to do that, but he does have to give WWE credit with the fact that they do have a better product, especially with Triple H in tow. And yeah, Vince maybe was out of touch. As a close to 80-year-old, you're not going to know what's good, and especially for somebody who's been in charge for 40 years, there's going to be times where somebody else has more ideas, and that's Triple H, and I get it, and it's great. Tony Khan is only 20-something, maybe 30 years old, right? He's starting about the same time Vince started. Difference being, Vince was already working in the business as an announcer for his father, so he already had the experience in the business. Tony Khan is a smart guy. He's got, a lot of money, but he's also got a lot of brains. The fact that he's, a statistician for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's, probably in the same role for his soccer team that he has over in England. And he's a very smart person in general. But that does not necessarily mean you're a smart person when it comes to wrestling. I'm not in the wrestling business, and I don't claim to be. I'm not even at Dave Meltzer's level because I don't get that kind of money for a subscription. But what I am is a fan. And I've been watching wrestling for almost my entire life. Probably from the time I was 6 or 7, I started watching wrestling. I've been a Hulkamaniac since the late 80s. And I still am a very big Hulk Hogan fan. I'm not going to deny that. But see, here's the thing. After watching these, and yes, wrestling does evolve, and yes, there are going to be different styles, which is why MLW calls their show Fusion, because the fusion of all the different styles from around the world. There is strong style from Europe and Japan. There is high-flying lucha stuff from Mexico and Japan. And then there's the style that made the WWE famous is the bigger guy, superhero, over-the-top style. And yeah, WWE's gotten a little better. But if your show is going to be entirely one type, and you make excuses when it goes in a different style that not everybody likes, problem with AEW, in my opinion, from what I see as a fan, is that they're trying to push the indie style on everybody, like the John Moxleys of the world and the GCW stuff. I'm not a fan of hardcore wrestling. It had its time. And yeah, if it's going to be a hardcore match, fine. Don't get me wrong. Hardcore, Extreme Rules, whatever you want to call it. I don't believe in the death match. Like, something that I don't believe in using light tubes or door frames or any of this other stuff. Unless it's a specialized match that happens once. Like, thumbtacks happen once every 10 years or whatever it is. Maybe once every 5 years. And it's usually Mick Foley or Abyss. But that's what makes it special. When you're doing a hardcore Extreme Rules match with the same guy every time, and you're using the same stuff every time instead of trying to be innovative, it does get boring and turns people off. I'm sorry, it is what it is. And I'm not as bad as Cornette. Cornette completely, you know what I mean? But as a fan, I personally do not like AEW. And I'm not going to go out of my way to find it. Like, if I can find it, I can find it. But I'm not paying for their pay-per-views. I mean, I guess I'm kind of spoiled by WWE because their premium live events are on Peacock, which I already pay for. So it is what it is. But either way, thank you all for listening or watching. I'm going to post this over to everywhere that I can because that's how I'm going to start to get noticed. And have a great day, everybody.